Well, that was a busy 3 weeks. The World Gaming Executive Summit in Barcelona, IGB Live in Amsterdam, and then last week, SBC North America in New Jersey and New York. Hats off to you if you managed all three, and good luck doing your expenses. It was at the SBC event in New Jersey last week that I sat down with the company's marketing director, Dennis Algreen, to discuss plans and preparations for the SBC Barcelona showpiece, which takes place in September. The football championship on the pitch at Espanyol sounds particularly interesting. Also, listen out for producer Ellie's contribution to that chat with Dennis, sharing her apparently extensive knowledge of Jessica Chastain's movie career. Before that, Squaring the Air's Dan Snook makes his pod bow chatting to Realistic Games' Robert Lee about the state of the slot sector and how Realistic is evolving in response, shedding its skin to contemporize, as Dan neatly puts it. But first up, on Monday of this week, I spoke to Simon Hammon of Relax Gaming following the recent news of his promotion to CEO. We talk about the challenges ahead and just how critical the timing of the move is for Relax. This is the latest episode from iGaming FM, the betting and gaming sector's talk radio show, and this is our little theme tune. Simon, you've been on this podcast before, and this is the first time as CEO of Relax Gaming. How's it going?
All good. Very busy times for not only myself, but also Relax. But all very positive and very excited.
It feels like you're someone who's, with others, been the kind of public face of Relax for the 4 or 5 years that you've been there now. I wonder why this move has come now when you sort of led the CPO role before, right? You've led the kind of product face of the company for all of that time. Why the shift in focus now, and why CEO now?
Yeah, absolutely right. I think my face has been pretty visible in the industry for a little while. And my passion, I guess, has always been around creating great product. I think that the change of direction really comes also with the timeline of Relax. I mean, again, not many people know that Relax is a 12-year-old company. So it's gone through several transitions over the course of the period, but a great growth period has been the last 4. My job really at that point was to take what was excellent about Relax and build that up in terms of a visible brand, marketable product, highly competitive product. So I wouldn't say that job is done. That's something that we build upon now, because I think we've established ourselves as a top quality provider. But it's all about, I guess, use of my time, my focus. And I think because I am very passionate about Relax, and a lot of the people who are joined Relax are relatively new, it's about trying to harness and build upon that. So I think it's about timing more than anything, and also where Relax is in its current journey, and also the position that we enjoy. So I think I can bring something a little bit fresh, a little bit new, and also build upon the great foundation that we have.
You talked then about the position Relax is in now versus 3 or 4 years ago. So for the leadership, for the CEO specifically, this is a different kind of challenge to perhaps what it was 2 years ago, because the company's grown a lot, right, in terms of numbers. I mean, it's harder to steal a company of many hundreds than it is of a few dozen.
That's very true. And if you look at 4 years ago, we were 70, 80 employees, different locations, very intrinsic with our bingo and poker product, our casino baseline product. Fast forward now 3 or 4 years later, and we're upwards of nearly 300. So that is a very different organization need, structural need, and also presents its own challenges, opportunities, and so on and so forth. So you're right, the jobs in essence are very, very different. Being a CEO of Relax 3 or 4 years ago had its own challenges versus what's in front of myself. But I'm excited by that, because I think a lot of that organizational growth has been driven largely from the activities that I have pushed into Relax. In essence, I've been responsible for that new growth anyway, in terms of personnel, and dare I say, obviously the cultures that come with it. So it's a bigger company, bigger challenge, but one that I'm already very familiar with in terms of the level of personnel responsibility and their needs. I'm excited about that. Very, very excited.
When you look back on the last 3 or 4 years, obviously, as people who develop businesses, we all back ideas and we take leaps of faith sometimes. When you look back on the last 3 or 4 years, when were the moments when it really started to take off for Relax? There's been an explosion in profile in the last 3 years or so. And what do you attribute that to? Because obviously that's shaping the company going forward.
I went from a CPO position of quite a well-established brand in the market in that sense, and went to what was arguably a relatively unknown entity in certain circles, of course. But one thing that was always really key for me was what was that technical base? What was that product base? What was the potential of that base? And I often referred to Relax as a real diamond in the rough. And I came there to help shape it and polish it, really, and to build it up, and presented some huge challenges because there was a lot of things that weren't in place, a lot of things that were needed, a lot of expectation. Not just myself, but others who joined Relax at that time had high profiles and therefore built sort of high expectations to the market. But when did I think things were really starting to take off? I think the proudest moment I've had is actually when we launched our first in-house slot production in Temple Tumble, and that was, I believe, April 2018 or so, and that was such a big hit. So that showed to me already very early on, first production, we have the potential to compete here. We have the people, the foundation, we have the knowledge already feeding in, and we have the ability here to do what we set out to do. And that was not to be just any other casino provider, of which there's the market's awash with, but to really stand out from the crowd. And if anybody knows me, they know I'm a massive advocate of quality. Dare I say, like to think that Relax has if not, top 1, 2, or 3 top quality productions on the market. And that is a position that we've been challenging ourselves with every quarter. How can we get better? How can we be more visual? How can we make a strong impression? And I want to go to every operator, and when they say, who are your top providers, they say, Relax is there. And I think we're already there. But if you're asking me when that set in, I would say it would be pretty early doors in our first casino production that gave the fire then to start moving forward and investing.
From the outside, I thought you were going to say Money Train then, which obviously was more recently, but you will have seen the seeds of that long before, as you've just said.
Yeah, no, I agree. Money Train 2 especially was perhaps our big breakout commercial success in that sense.
Yeah, I guess that you wouldn't have had a 2 without a 1, so that's why I mentioned the 1.
Yeah, but I would say the Temple Tumble production, because it was so early, because that was the foundation also of building up studios, knowledge transfer, even getting some of the basics in place, like client areas and flow and certification, release points. There was a lot of foundationary steps that were done in that preceding year to get to that point. It's nice to have compounded it, let's put it that way, with follow-up productions.
Also nice to have people citing many different reasons for success. But it puts the pressure on the new CEO. What's on your to-do list for the next year? I mean, I don't know what timeline we should apply, but the next few months and then the next couple of years or so, what are your ambitions become Relax's ambitions and vice versa now? So where are we going?
I would say that they're sort of multi-tiered in many respects. I mean, fundamentally, Relax is going from strength to strength, both in terms of its operator distribution, our own game performance and game quality, and also the level of regulated markets that we're now pushing into. So in essence, it's maintaining that stamp, that quality perception, but also that growth point. That's, of course, like for any CEO, you need to keep driving the success and keep moving forward. I would say a big part of my role now is also to start driving the more global ambition that we have, which is, of course, natural penetration into the North American market. That will be a key feature of our strategy in the next year. We've lightly touched upon it. We've got license in the Ontario market, and naturally the movements in North America, in the US specifically, are highly attractive for us. So that will be a key focus. But we also have some natural white spots in our European territories as well. So we've just entered Spain and Italy, and we need to double down and compound those positions as well. In terms of organization, and culture, like you mentioned before, we are a bigger company now. The market also expects certain things in terms of our operators and general customer base. So making sure that we are well fitted to our new position, I would say, in the market, which I think is, dare I say, becoming an operator must have in that sense. And I think you need to have the organization readiness and also culture to support that growth. We've done a rapid growth of the company from 70 to 300 in the last few years. And you've got to keep those people happy, motivated, challenged, and also not rest on your laurels to make sure that we keep on the same pace that we've been going in the last 4 years, which is extremely high. That's a key focus. Culture and organization solidification is certainly one of those key things for me.
The US, North America, the US specifically, seemingly it can't just be filed under another market entry. It is a completely different beast. And as you pointed out, Relax is rightly considered as a well-established premium supplier in the markets it exists in already. But in the US, I suspect that the profile is much lower. How do you revert to being a startup in the US?
You're absolutely right. I mean, the market presence, and no one knows Relax content really in the US market. So, of course, just as with other suppliers back in the day, you need to highlight your value proposition, where you stand in the European landscape and how that can apply to the US market. Without a doubt, Relax has taken and continues to take significant market share from, let's say, some of the more established or well-known European suppliers, and therefore perhaps the US viewpoint. So without a doubt, we love the challenger status. It's why we've grown so quickly. I would say 4 years ago, nobody knew who we were. Now it's like, oh, there's Relax. We know what it means to be a challenger. We love it. We don't mind disrupting a bit of the status quo, something that we are pretty keen to do. So yeah, it's kind of in our natural comfort zone. We know that we need to build brand awareness, product value, something that we'll drive pretty aggressively, I think, in the US market in the coming year and years. But for sure, it's a different proposition to entering a normal, let's say, European market. Different approach, different value proposition, and we need to upsell that value proposition more aggressively, I would say, in the US market, just for brand visibility.
Maybe a different style of game for a different kind of player?
Potentially. I mean, you should always be looking at the localized twist to any content portfolio. But that said, I think the US market, from what I have seen data and stats on, what works in Europe, if it works really well, resonates pretty well in the US market, ultimately. Naturally, there's the customizations you need to do, to be compliant and certified and so on and so forth. But if it's working well and it's a top performer in Europe, stands to reason that it should, with the right push, do very well in the US market as well. So that's not to say we won't look at localized twists and areas, but I would say our key focus at the moment is to upsell the top performing content that we have in the European landscape.
You mentioned the company's status a few times then, and I'm interested where you pitch Relax now among its peers and where you would like to see that go under your tenure as CEO. What are your ambitions for that?
I think one of the key things for Relax has always been a high challenger position based upon pretty aggressive growth, underpinned by great tech and excellent product. And that's something that we are very humble about, quite paranoid about. And the job is by no means done. We still have a long way to go. We still have a lot to achieve. We're still very hungry as a company. And I think that hunger has made us extremely successful in the last few years. But that's only going to serve us now for the coming. As a CEO of that, I think most people know me or who have met me know that I'm deeply passionate about being ahead of our competition, beating our competition, something that I'm very driven to do. I can see that a lot of what was our core competition a few years ago, I feel Relax is blowing them out the water. I want to continue doing that. So it doesn't matter how big they are or how innovative they are or how well perceived they are. My job is to come after everybody.
Realistic Games has been around for a lot longer than most studios. Founded in the UK in 2002, it has developed a huge number of slots, table, and instant win games, but is probably most known for its slots, which historically have enjoyed a more traditional design, influenced heavily by the land-based UK AWP sector. Now in 2022, the industry and player trends have advanced to a level that sees content of a much more contemporary nature, and Realistic is adjusting its course to meet those requirements head on. Today, iGaming FM has the pleasure of speaking to Realistic's commercial director, Robert Lee, to find out a little more about this new direction, the industry as a whole, and what current developments mean for players. Welcome, Rob. The fact that we're talking to you about these trends in modern slots on a podcast rather than a written Q&A is rather telling. But can you tell us what was it that prompted Realistic to shed its skin, as it were, and adopt a more modern approach to game design?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for inviting me on to this podcast. Certainly was looking forward to it all weekend. Starting off with those really important questions, I think, as you rightly said, that Realistic historically has been renowned for its presence in the UK market, particularly around that traditional AWP slot sort of fruit style based content. Two reasons really why we've sort of looked at where we want to go in the future, more or less starting from about 6 to 9 months ago. Really, we were acquired by another operating company within the gaming space, which obviously allowed us to be part of a much bigger organisation, both from a resource perspective and from a financial perspective. That then led us on to sort of plotting out what we want to do in 2022. And one of those main areas of growth for us was entering new markets. With our existing portfolio that has resonated extremely well over the years in the UK, as you rightly said. Moving into different markets where different look and feel and game types are more expected, that was one of the key reasons for us to looking to diversify our portfolio moving forward. But also, as I touched on there, just having wider resource available brings with it more experience and more artists and more game developers that have a different style we can use to our advantage and our benefit.
And you mentioned the extra resources you've got there. The first release that has really taken on that new ethos that you have in design, Guerrilla Riches, marked not only the introduction of variable RTPs into Realistic's portfolio, but it was your dev team's first step forward, really, and Realistics as a whole in enhancing quality in gameplay and presentation. How big a jump was that for the team that works on your games?
Personally, I don't think it was a big jump. I think most of these things have always been within the capabilities of the existing team. We didn't have going for us previously or historically was time. We were a very small team. Therefore, we had to sort of focus that time on getting content out and keeping up with our bigger competitors in terms of game releases. Now being part of a bigger organisation, that's not been as important in the early stages. It's more about the quality of the release rather than the quantity of the release. And I think that's helped massively, particularly with our existing team that has been transitioned into the wider group as well. So there's been input from the wider company that's allowed our legacy team, if you like, to develop and hone their skills. Well, I think we saw that in Guerrilla Riches, not just with the look and the feel of the game, but it was also our first game where we introduced our new UI. So our existing UI that we'd had previously, was fit for purpose when we introduced it probably 7 or 8 years ago. But again, as the market's moved on and people come to expect a lot more flexibility and a lot more easier to use functionality in today's day and age, that was something that we also took on board at that point. So really, Guerrilla Riches, it was a huge step forward in terms of we introduced our new UI, we introduced multiple RTPs for the first time, we introduced the look and feel of the game was slightly different to things we've done in the past, and that was the stepping stone really for the rest of the year, where we've got 2 or 3 other significantly more engaging content coming, really, in the next sort of 6 to 9 months. But in terms of your original question around how difficult was it for the team at Realistic historically have been ridiculously good at what they've done and continue to do that. And I think just having that flexibility and that time and that involvement with other members of teams within the wider organisation has just enhanced their ability to do this type of big movement forward that we're looking for.
That big move that you're taking now, is that going to be the style that Realistic's going to adopt with all its content moving forward? Will you be leaving traditional slots behind completely now, or would you say there's going to be more of a mix in your future releases?
Something that we looked at sort of towards the middle of last year in planning for this year's roadmap and beyond into 2023, really, there was 3 areas that we looked to consider. And that was what's currently working in the market. And I can give some examples. Fishing games. There was a couple of articles out in the press this week, just how popular they are and how popular could they become. I think we all know how popular they are. And once something becomes popular, it just continues to be popular. One of our areas of focus for the rest of this year and for next year was let's look at what's working in the market. Let's look to evolve on those base concepts. And that's something that we've started to do both with Guerrilla Riches and our upcoming release, Book of Charms. We're also going to be venturing out in 2023 into some new style of games. So not just slot-based content or table-based content. There will be some different types of games coming from the Realistic Studio. Look out for those. Can't say too much about them at the moment.
I was just about to ask you, but clearly you can't give me anything.
It will be diversifying our portfolio again to keep up with what's happening out there in the wider market and some of the ideas that we've started to see creeping through. Maybe not necessarily in the RNG space, but something that we're looking to capitalise on. And the final part to that, are we completely moving away from that traditional look and feel? Absolutely not. We still have a huge UK market. But what we will be doing over the course of the rest of this year and next year is having a wider portfolio in terms of newer looking content, traditional content, new concepts that we've spoke about, some new and more interesting, exciting table content. And again, all this comes back to just having that resource available moving forward to do more, but importantly, to do more as well to keep that sort of level of content at a high standard.
And speaking of which, The latest release that you alluded to earlier, Book of Charms, is actually one, if people haven't seen it already, combines two staple industry themes. What's the reaction been like so far? Because it is one of the larger releases of the year. And what do you think of the future for game themes in general? Is there anywhere new left to explore?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So let's start off with the game itself. It was released 2 weeks ago exclusively across the Entain portfolio. Goes out market exclusive this Thursday to a number of operators in different markets, and then it goes national release towards the end of the month. The feedback we've had from the Entain group has been very positive. It's ranked quite highly in their comparison of new game releases over the last 9 to 12 months, which is very good news for us. But more importantly, I think, which is very important for us, is, whilst we were in Amsterdam last week, we had a number of operators who were currently not live with that had seen the marketing and PR around it that said they really liked the look of the game. It was a great idea. We had some feedback from some competitor studios that said that's an absolute amazing idea. I can't believe nobody's come up with that before. And again, it just goes back to what I said in the last question. We looked at what was working out there, and book games are working, but we couldn't see anybody that had done a book game that included the scatter symbol in the book game. And then if you include that scatter symbol in the book game and that becomes your chosen symbol, that opens up the door to 165, 330 or 495 free spins to kick off your bonus round with. Now, what player and what operator doesn't want to kick off a bonus round with 330 free spins? Just sort of confirms where we're going as a studio in terms of, we know what works, we need to build on that to give the player something extra and something added to what they already have. And that's what Book of Charms does. It takes that traditional book theme, but offers that little bit of differentiation with that scatter symbol that allows the players to have that huge win potential.
And I suppose that differentiation that you mentioned there is the key that all studios are looking for. That's what everybody wants to aspire to. Well, everybody claims they're innovative, but very often you see the same themes, the same features, very similar mechanics. Is there anywhere left to go?
We've been sort of both ends of the scale. You'll probably recall about 3 years ago, we spent a lot of time, money, effort and resource developing what we thought would be a great new concept in the Game Changer concept. We launched 7 or 8 games in that concept. They did okay. Some did reasonably well, but the concept itself just didn't sort of grip with players. But when we were putting it out there to operators and peers, they all said this could be the next thing, this is great. So we've been down that route of trying to be innovative and trying to come up with something new. But how often does something new and innovative come around and stick? Megaways did it, but what was before Megaways? I can't remember a theme that sort of had that sort of gravitas as what Megaways did. And I think certainly in our industry and in slot development across the globe, really, all of those ideas stem from an existing idea in some way, shape or form. Whether that be the number of real symbols, the number of win lines, the number of wild symbols, what the wild symbols do. There's very, very, very rarely is there a game that is completely unique because players like certain things in the slot game. So in terms of innovation, where does innovation start and stop? I think that there's huge room for innovation just by, again, doing something similar to what we're doing. And that's taking concepts that work and making them better. I suppose it's no different to car manufacturers, right? They take their last model, build on that and make it better. Very rarely do they change the whole infrastructure of the car, or they just look at what they did last time and make it more aerodynamic or add to it or add to a feature set. And it's no different to slots, in my opinion.
Dennis Algrini is a busy man, so I was pleased to grab a few minutes of his time during the SBC event in New Jersey last week amid the refrigerated cool of the Meadowlands Expo Centre. As that event
Dennis, when we spoke about, we joked about SBC Barcelona online a couple of weeks ago, that we were talking about, it was the scale of the event, the size of the event. It's got bigger since the last staging. How do you manage that? How do you keep it on theme? How do you deliver it in the simplest form?
With Barcelona, it becomes a matter of making sure that everybody understands, one, that it's a global event that also encompasses all verticals. And really to support that, we felt we've had to kind of conceptualize that a little bit. So the event is divided divided into 5 zones that flow through both the exhibition as well as the conference content. So we have a sports betting zone, we have a casino and iGaming zone, we have a payments and compliance zone, and we also have an affiliate, marketing and media zone, and we've just added an emerging tech, blockchain and metaverse zone, trying to cover some of the newer trends, especially within marketing and technology. We've tried to help the audience understand where they will be able to find what they're looking for, not only when they're walking through a rather large exhibition hall, but also trying to navigate 7 conference stages throughout the event.
Have you gone for any kind of like big arena style, like any stadium seating or anything like that? How do you differentiate one conference room from another?
Well, I mean, the main conference room, the big one, is kind of set up in the sense that it's meant for, let's say, Apple-style product presentations. And we actually have quite a few sponsors already that have coordinated some of their product launches specifically for this, so that at the end of September is an ideal place in the calendar to launch your next year's products and what's coming up. That one is a bit special, but in general, across the 7 stages, the setup will be very different because some rooms are set up to facilitate more masterclass style sessions with more in-depth content about a specific subject. We actually have confirmation now that Google will be hosting 2 masterclasses during the event, and that's sort of more in-depth content, more something that you as a particular person with your job might find applicable to you. So a little narrower in audience, and at the same time we've got the bigger stages where the big subjects of the industry will be discussed.
That's a huge undertaking. So what are the highlights? What are the things you're going to pull out as a marketing specialist to draw people into the event?
Of course, this event is maybe more about the exhibition than any other event we've ever done, but conference content is still at the core of it, and across 7 stages over 2 days running simultaneously, there will be something for everybody. We have everything from large-scale keynotes from people like Shay Segev, the CEO of DAZN, Johan Tjernberg, the CEO of Trustly, and actually Molly Bloom, best-selling author of Molly's Game. People might have seen the movie on Netflix. If they haven't, they should.
Producer Ellie is indicating that she has indeed seen it. Is it any good, Ellie?
Really, really worth watching. It's got Jessica Chastain in it, who's just won an Oscar. She's fantastic in it. Really worth watch.
Thanks to our Jessica Chastain biographer, producer Ellie.
Yeah.
What else have you got to attract the eye?
Well, I mean, and that's where the specialized zones concept flows in. So if you're looking for sports betting, you'll find anything from the overall strategy, the very, very high level topics about where the industry is going, but it's still applicable to your specific interests in terms of either sports betting, casino and iGaming, etc. But you will also then find the more in-depth, more specialized content, talking about the newest trends in marketing. That's where the metaverse zone, emerging tech and blockchain comes in, but always related to the industry. So that's kind of the highlight. The whole point is that everybody will be able to just find something extremely useful. And then it's panel sessions. We have 350 plus speakers at this event, and that is a lot of knowledge available at your disposal for 2 days. Now, we also do realize not everybody will be able to witness every session they want to, especially with 7 stages going on, which is where our digital event app comes in and gives the opportunity post-event to still be able to catch up on the sessions you might have missed.
That's the roundup of the things that you might most obviously see on an event page. But then, you know, we're at SBC Summit North America right now, and there's a lot of people here who haven't bought a meal for 2 days because it was all free from SBC. They haven't bought a drink for 2 days. They've been to some outstanding venues, and this is the signature for SBC. People are made to feel special, cared for. So in that sense, what's the bonus content at Barcelona? What else are you adding in there?
I mean, aside from what I would refer to these days as the SBC's signature networking events, which is going the full throttle on picking the best venues, making sure that they're not just spectacular, but they are also very, very suited for the networking style that happens in this industry. Nobody wants to just go to a party. You need to be able to have the conversations, because oftentimes that is where deals and relationships are established.
Yeah, sure. You work more readily with people you like, right? So, and this is how you find out you like them.
Yes, exactly. The whole point is that this is an industry built on very much trust relationships relationships, because you don't go out and pick a partner just based on their marketing. You need to understand who you're working with, and I think that is what the networking events brings. And then aside from that, we then have a number of special features going on throughout the entire week in Barcelona, pretty much. We have everything from our SBC Championship, a five-a-side football tournament at Espanyol Stadium.
Oh, so that's in Spain this time rather than traditionally at Chelsea in London. You've moved it to the Mediterranean.
Yeah, we've moved it to Espanyol Stadium in Barcelona, which is convenient. And since a lot of companies are already coming to Barcelona, it makes it that much more attractive to participate in what's always a very enjoyable day. We also have Gaisca Mendieta already confirmed to come and play with us, so there's a bit of a stardust.
He's a Madrid legend though, right? So he's going to be playing in Barcelona.
He's not a Madrid legend at all. Actually, he is a former Valencia captain and was a Valencia legend. Actually won one of the few La Liga titles with Valencia that they have actually won.
I know Dennis is a Madrid fan, so I thought that's why I mentioned that.
That is true. But yeah, that we've got the J Digital are hosting their Spanish Operator Awards on the Tuesday as well, and that feeds more or less directly into the pre-registration party for us. So everything will be connected, and there'll be so much going on. Another highlight I would mention is Molly Bloom isn't just giving a keynote. For those that know, what she's known for is having hosted a number of underground VIP poker tournaments in Hollywood for a number of years. Some of the biggest stars in the world have played in these, and she will be hosting her own Molly's game for about 100 C-levels from the industry. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Then we round out the week on Thursday night with having moved the SBC Awards from London, which it also traditionally has been, to the Palau Nacional in Barcelona, which is essentially a palace that currently functions as a national museum.
It sounds great, and people don't always say that about work events, but we know that if we go to an SPC event, we're going to have a good time. So to round off, Dennis, you should probably just remind people when and where this is and how they can find out more and how we can look forward to seeing as many of them as possible in Barcelona in a couple of months' time.
Yeah, so the event happens from the 20th to 22nd of September in Barcelona. I would recommend booking the whole week, because not only are we having a lot of stuff on, but since we are gathering, up to 6,000 people and expected 6,000 people of the industry, it means a lot of other companies and organizations will be hosting elements during the week, and it's a very, very easy way to connect with a lot of people in one place. Save yourself the hassle from having to set up meetings separately and travel to them. That's really what these events can do.
Thanks again to all contributors to this episode, to Simon, Robert and Dennis for joining us, to Dan for his expert debut, and of course to Ellie for her film facts segment, which we may well make a regular feature. Enjoy the summer. I hope it's not too unbearably hot where you are. If you're a Swede, enjoy a week or two at your summer house in the Stockholm archipelago. If you're a Brit, enjoy telling everyone, I like it hot, but not this hot. We'll see you in Barcelona.